So let's talk about an account for justified killing in war. A moral justification for killing in war that can make sense to all people, or to all Americans at least, and really to anyone who accepts the idea of human rights and the rights to life and liberty. So our starting point is that every human being, by virtue of being a human being, has certain inalienable rights, right? And the most fundamental has to be the right to life. And next is the right to liberty, right? Although, and I know Thomas Jefferson used them, and he's much smarter than I am, those terms aren't exactly precise, because we don't have a right to life. We're all going to die at some point. If we get struck by lightning, no one has violated our rights. If we get attacked by a bear, no one has violated our rights. If we die of cancer, no one has violated our rights. It's not that we have a right to life. We have a right not to be killed by another human being. The right to liberty, right, and to freedom is really the right not to be enslaved by another human being. The right to free speech is the right not to be shut up by another human being. If you have laryngitis or if you're mute, no one has violated your rights. So, conventionally, rights to life and liberty, really it's important to think of them as the rights not to be killed or harmed, right, and the right not to be enslaved. And all human beings have these by virtue of being a human being. Whether you believe that comes from God, as some inalienable right given to all human beings, whether you're with Kant and you think it comes from having human reason in that special capacity, whether you think it comes from a social contract or even international law, almost all international law is based on the fact now that there is the presumption that human beings have a certain dignity, and included in that are certain human rights, the most fundamental of which is the right not to be killed. And that's why it's wrong to kill another person, right? Because we're violating that essential right that they have. And so that's why there may be people we don't like, people who say things we don't like, people who share different opinions or whatever else, but we know that it's morally wrong to harm them because everyone has the right not to be harmed. At the same time, we know that a right is a right as long as it doesn't infringe on the rights of others. We know that we can forfeit certain rights. Right? Our prison system is a very clear indicator that this right to liberty is not absolute, right? That we can lose it through our own behaviors. And so if you're walking down the street, you see someone you don't like, can't do any harm to them, right? But if that person picks up a knife and starts coming at you to attack you, you absolutely have the right to use violence against that person to protect yourself. Why? Well, think of that, the rights we have are a little bubble around us, right? Remember in kindergarten, teachers always talk about we all have our space. But think of these rights as a bubble, because really they're claims against other persons saying that they can't do certain things to us, right? Yet, the way we lose that right, the way we forfeit our bubble, is if we go and violate the rights of another person or threaten to do so. So that's why when someone comes at us with a knife, not only can we, when we fight back against them, right? You always have the aggressor and then the defender. The defender doesn't do anything wrong. And in fact, the fact that they don't do anything wrong says something about the aggressor, because a third person can come in and help out and also do violence to that attacker, but they haven't done anything wrong. In fact, we'll call them a hero. And the reason is, by virtue of threatening another person, by virtue of violating someone else's bubble, that aggressor has forfeited his own right not to be harmed. And that's why we have the right to self-defense and other defense. Or it's one way of understanding this right that we all intuitively know. Let me give a quick example. Right. This example has bank tellers, police officers, bank robber. So they all get up in the morning, and everyone has the right not to be killed. It comes with being a human being. But the bank robber makes a really bad decision. Gets a gun, loads it up, decides he's going to go rob the bank. He goes into the bank, looks at the teller, puts the gun up, says, "Give me all the money, or I'm going to kill you." The teller reaches down to get the money and hits that little button, the alarm button, right? Bank robber sees that, boom, shoots her right in the head. She goes down. He turns to the next teller, says, "Give me the money," right? So that teller grabs money, gives it to him. Bank robber's running out of the bank to get away. But because that first teller hit the alarm, police officer's coming up nearby, he pulls out front. Bank robber comes out, can't get away. There's a police officer coming up, bringing up the weapon. So he runs back into the bank, he grabs the living teller, says, you know what, I'm taking you as a hostage, I'm going to make you a shield, you're my ticket out of here. So the bank robber comes out, and he's keeping his hostage between him and the police officer, and he's moving to his getaway car. Now at that moment, if the police officer can get a clean shot, is he justified in shooting that bank robber? Yes. Right? Why? That bank robber, by having a gun to the head, right, is threatening an innocent person and therefore has forfeited his own right not to be killed. But the problem is the bank robber has the shield in front of him, and the police officer, there's a very good chance the police officer would shoot the hostage if he fires. So he shouldn't, right? Because the job of a police officer is only do violence to those who have forfeited the right by being threats. The police officer is there to protect the hostage. Shouldn't put her at risk. So he doesn't fire. But the police always come, multiple ones. So we have another police officer coming up from the other direction. She gets out. She's got a rifle. She's very qualified with it. She comes up. She has a shot to the back of the bank robber who doesn't see her. Should she fire? Yes. Every second she's delaying, she's risking this person killing the hostage. But again, she's trying to be very careful because she doesn't want to hit the innocent person. So she offsets just a little bit because the hostage is a little out front, so she shoots a little bit more to the back. And she shoots. And it just skims the bank robber, right? The bank robber turns, boom, shoots the police officer. Would we, legally, morally, say that the bank robber was justified in shooting the police officer based on self-defense? Are we going to say, well, it was fair the police officer shot first? No, we're not. We would say, now you're going to jail, probably capital punishment for shooting a police officer. Not only you killed the bank teller, now you killed a police officer. And that even raises the stakes more. Why? Because the police officer didn't do anything wrong, right? She used violence only against someone who had already forfeited his right not to be killed by choosing to be a threat to an innocent person. And so that's why when he shoots back, he was wrong. Because the police officer does not lose, that second police officer does not lose her right not to be killed. Think this through some more about rights and how long they're right. What if the police officer who fires hits the hand or hits the gun, say hits the gun, and the gun goes flying away? And now the bank robber is just sitting there holding the hostage and he has no weapon. Should she just go center mass, shoot again to finish him off? No, right? At that point, right, that person is, just by not having the capability to be a threat, is no longer a threat, right? And the police should come and try to find a non-violent way to apprehend that person and to rescue the hostage. Similarly, if the police officer shot and just skimmed him or missed him, and he turned and saw that now he was surrounded, and he put his hands up and surrendered, suddenly again, the police would be wrong to fire, right? Because why? Because now he has signaled his intent not to be a threat. For someone to be a threat, they have to have the capability and the intent. When the gun was shot away, he lost the capability to do harm, right? When he put up his hands and surrendered, he signaled his intent was no longer to do harm. Now, the first thing the police will say is drop the weapon, right? Because intent, you can lie about intent. Let's take away capability. So it's important to understand that when someone's a threat, there has to be the people they're threatening, the innocent person, right? That they're threatening that causes them to lose their rights, and they have to have both the intent to do wrong and the capability. Or even if they don't know what's wrong, intent to do something that's objectively wrong and the capability to do that. So now when we think about war, right, that is why when you shoot an enemy combatant, they're fully justified kill, but when they're, it's always an amazing thing with the American military. We'll be in a firefight with people trying to kill them. As soon as, we've shot someone and they no longer can pose a threat to us, our medics run out, and provide aid, and we medevac them and save their lives. To some civilians, that sounds crazy. Wait, you're just trying to kill the person, now you're rescuing them? Yes, because we're trying to kill them when they were posing a threat, when they had forfeited their right. And as soon as they could no longer pose a threat, they regain their rights. As human beings, by default, we have the right not to be killed unless we are engaged in an activity that causes us to forfeit our right. Now, one aspect in which this account of someone forfeiting the right not to be killed that is different from civilian life to military life is along the question of immediacy. Right? So in the civilian world, you really need to have the capability to do harm, the intent to do harm, and it has to be an immediate threat. So for example, let's say, the last time you were home from your military training, you met this person, say you're a guy, you met a girl, and she, like you, she broke up with her boyfriend. She wants to be with you. So now you're back visiting the hometown again, seeing her again, and her old boyfriend comes up and confronts you. And he says, man, you stole my girl, da-da-da, gets himself all worked up. And he says, dude, I'm going to kill you. He reaches, he doesn't have his weapon. He's like, I'm going home, I'm getting my gun, I'm coming back, and I'm killing you. Right? And he heads off to his truck to go get his gun. Let's say you had a gun on you. Right? Legally, morally, would it be okay to shoot him as he walks away? No. Right? What should you do? You should go inside or grab your cell phone. You should call the police, right? Because there's a higher level of protection. Because the threat isn't immediate and it can be avoided, right? The police could pick him up, or they could just protect you because it's a very personal threat, right? And there's some time for that authority to come in and to save the day. In war, there are some real big differences, right? One is there is no higher authority, right? In war, when soldiers are fighting, it is because things have fallen apart and there is no higher authority going on there. Two, it's not a personal fight, right? If you can detain that person, you can detain them and that's good, right? But it's not like just protecting you is going to make a difference because the pacifists have it right on this. That person's not shooting at me going, I hate Pete Kilner, right? And I don't know the names of the people I'm shooting at. All he knows is I'm an American force or a coalition force, and I know that's an insurgent or whoever the enemy is. So, just to walk away and to let it be isn't helping things. He's just going to go kill, another coalition force on another day. So the difference, immediacy, whereas in civilian life, immediacy, it has to be right now. Here's the threat. There's nothing we can do about it. The relevant aspect of immediacy in a war is as long as the war is going on, right? Each of us in a war, I'm one cell in the body of the American military, and this insurgent is one cell, in the insurgent, and these two sides are at war, right? And that war is always going on. And anytime I get the chance to eliminate a piece of that enemy body, right? I should, through detaining him or killing him. But it doesn't have to be posing an immediate threat, right? That's why we can ambush, or we can shoot at range, or we can do other things because the threat isn't personal. But at the level of the war, the two sides is as if we're always engaged in the same fight.